Have you ever woken up with that heavy, unshakable brain fog? Or maybe you've been pushing yourself on that relentless, exhausting treadmill of self-optimization, just trying to feel sharp. Well, trust me, you are definitely not alone. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the cinematic neuroscience of how we eat. We're going to look at our modern obsession with mental clarity and the hidden, quite frankly, dangerous reality of burnout. We'll uncover the exact biological mechanisms that are either actively healing your brain right now or quietly pushing your nervous system right to the edge.
It brings us to a question we really need to ask ourselves. We live in this culture that is just obsessed with optimization, right? We skip breakfast, we push our eating windows, all in this pursuit of becoming sharper, leaner, more focused. But here's the thing. There is a razor-thin line between biological enhancement and chronic, low-grade stress. So today, we're going to look at the clinical data to find out if your current fasting habits are actually building cognitive resilience, or if they're just quietly draining your emotional bandwidth and triggering a state of deep, hidden exhaustion.
Because the answer lies in a fundamental truth we often just kind of gloss over. The timing of your meals literally changes your brain chemistry. Fasting isn't merely a diet, it's a profound evolutionary superpower that's just lying dormant in our biology. When we restrict our nutrients during specific resting phases, we aren't just cutting calories. No, we are sending these incredibly powerful biochemical signals directly to our brain, altering everything from our neuroplasticity to how we handle stress.
So, let's dive into Section 1, the cognitive longevity promise. It all starts with what researchers call the metabolic switch. When we stop eating for a prolonged period, we deplete our liver's glycogen stores. Basically, the body realizes the easy, accessible energy is gone, so click. It flips a switch. It shifts from using glucose to oxidizing fatty acids, generating ketone bodies, specifically one called BHB. Now, what's really fascinating here is that BHB is an exceptionally clean, highly efficient fuel for both your heart and your cerebral tissues. It literally reduces oxidative stress right there in your brain.
And once that metabolic switch is flipped, another incredible process kicks in: autophagy. Think of autophagy as your brain's deep cleaning crew. It's kind of like the biological equivalent of Marie Kondo finally getting into your neglected neurons. Over the years, our cells accumulate toxic, damaged proteins, essentially just metabolic debris from chronic nutrient excess and constant stress. Fasting beautifully upregulates our defenses against neurodegeneration by triggering this exact recycling process. It literally clears the biological clutter out of your system. And honestly, that's a key mechanism for recovering that sharp, clear focus we're all desperately chasing. This whole thing is a step-by-step physiological journey. First, the easy fuel runs out. Second, we tap into our deeper reserves. Third, we produce that high-octane brain fuel we talked about. And finally, the cells prioritize deep, deep repair. It's this beautiful cascade that rewires the body for resilience. But hey, you don't have to just take my word for it. Let's look at what actually happens when this is tested in a real clinical setting.
The data here is truly remarkable. In an 8-week clinical trial conducted by the NIH, researchers looked at insulin-resistant adults. They compared a standard healthy diet to a 5-2 intermittent fasting protocol. And the MRI scans, they showed that the fasting group didn't just lose weight, they actually experienced a significant enhancement in executive function, planning, problem-solving. But here is the most astonishing part. They actually reduced the biological age of their brains by an average of 2.63 years. I mean, that is tangible neurological longevity in action.
Moving right along to Section 2, the gut-brain connection.
So when we fast, we profoundly alter the gut-brain axis. Brain imaging and microbiome sequencing have actually shown that intermittent fasting triggers coordinated shifts in our gut bacterial populations. And this, in turn, boosts an absolutely crucial brain-healing hormone called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You can think of BDNF like Miracle-Gro fertilizer for your neurons. It helps recover neuroplasticity, allowing the brain to literally change physical regions that regulate things like addiction, cravings, and executive self-control. It's amazing. Your gut bacteria and your brain are basically teaming up to reshape your entire relationship with food and focus.
But that brings us to a darker side of this. Section 3, the hidden cortisol trap. So what exactly happens when this evolutionary superpower is pushed just a little too far? Well, the brain actually starts to perceive the nutrient deprivation of fasting as a severe threat. It thinks, uh-oh, resource scarcity. So your nervous system panics, signaling your adrenal glands to pump out a massive increase in cortisol and adrenaline. Instead of feeling focused and completely clear, you end up trapped in this vicious cycle of HPA-axis stress.
You're no longer running on clean energy. You are literally running on the fumes of stress hormones.
And the biological fallout of this endocrine backfire is intense. It profoundly impacts our hormonal baseline, regardless of gender. That elevated cortisol prompts your liver to just dump glucose right into your bloodstream, which, ironically enough, can actually worsen insulin resistance and drive stubborn visceral fat. Meanwhile, your body, genuinely convinced it's starving, slows your metabolic rate by suppressing the active thyroid hormone T3. So you might start experiencing extreme fatigue, feeling cold all the time, maybe hair thinning, and ironically, even worse, brain fog. In fact, studies show that squeezing all your meals into very short eating windows can actually lead to lower cognitive score.
And guys, the stakes here are very high. Strikingly, recent observational data involving over 10,000 adults found a 58% increased risk of cardiovascular mortality in those whose nightly fasting windows were aggressively pushed beyond roughly 12.5 hours. Now, sure, this is observational data, but it is a massive, massive wake-up call that the whole more is always better approach to fasting might be fundamentally flawed and potentially really dangerous for our long-term health.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is this stark contrast. We have to make a choice about our biological signaling. Are we signaling nervous system safety, where circadian alignment allows for stable hormones and deep cellular repair? Or are we forcing our bodies into nervous system scarcity, pushing through elevated cortisol, thyroid suppression, and ultimate metabolic burnout? Your body simply cannot heal if it constantly thinks it's fighting for its life.
Which leads us to the solution. Section 4. Sustainable Protocols for Longevity.
This brings us to a much more sustainable, circadian-aligned protocol. Think something like a gentle 12-12 or maybe a 14-10 rhythm. Just imagine this. You wake up and you consume protein early. Why? To signal safety to your body right out of the gate. Then you eat balanced meals over a 12-hour window, let's say 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. When you stop eating in the evening, you perfectly balance your daytime energy demands with your sleep cycle. It takes about 5 hours to really digest dinner, meaning by 11 p.m. your gut is completely empty. That grants it the uninterrupted 7 hours of downtime it desperately requires for nighttime repair and activating those amazing longevity genes.
By adopting these gentle circadian-aligned rhythms, you maintain all the phenomenal cognitive benefits of fasting, but you completely sidestep that dangerous cortisol trap. You signal safety and consistency to your nervous system. So prioritize that morning protein, eat balanced meals every few hours, end your food intake a bit earlier in the evening to optimize your sleep architecture, and please avoid those extreme, highly restrictive eating windows. It's really all about working with your biology, not bullying it into submission.
I want to leave you with a somewhat provocative thought to mull over today. Will you continue to follow extreme diet trends, or will you finally listen to what your nervous system is actually asking for? Because true optimization isn't about how much stress your body can endure. It's about how much safety you can provide it so it can heal, repair, and truly thrive. Design your path to mental clarity and healthy aging not with brute force, but with profound biological respect. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.